Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2, the show where I read the Tanakh and provide my own interpretations of what I think it all means. This week's episode falls on the 14th of Nissan, 5785, April 12th, 2025. That is this week's Parashah for Parashat Tzav, and we're going to be reading once again from the book of Shmuel 1, chapters 22, 23, and 24. As always, I'd like to remind everybody I'm not a professional scholar, just somebody who wanted to study the scripture. We're going to be reading along in English on Chabad.org if you'd like to follow. From there, let's go ahead and jump on in. Shmuel 1, chapter 22, verse 1. And David went away from there, and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And his brothers and all his father's household heard, and went down to him there. And every man who was in distress, and every man who had a creditor, and every man of embittered spirit, gathered themselves to him, and he became a chief over them, and there were about 400 men with him. And David went from there to Mizpeh Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, Let my father and mother come out now with you, until I know what God will do for me. And he brought them before the king of Moab, and they stayed with him all the time that David was in the stronghold. And Gad the prophet said to David, You shall not stay in the stronghold. Go and enter the land of Judah. And David went and came to the forest of Hereth. And Saul heard that David and the men who were with him had become known. And Saul was sitting in Gibeah under the tamarisk tree on a hill. And his spear was in his hand, and all his servants were standing by him. And Saul said to his servants who were standing by him, Hearken now, O Benjamites, will the son of Jesse also give all of you fields and vineyards? Will he appoint all of you captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? For all of you have rebelled against me, and no one reveals to me when my son made a covenant with the son of Jesse. And no one of you feels sorry for me, or reveals to me that my son has incited my servant to rise up against me, to lie in wait as of this day. Then Doeg the Edomite, who was appointed over Saul's servants, answered and said, I saw the son of Jesse come to Nob, to Ahimelech the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of the Lord on his behalf, and gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. And the king sent to call Ahimelech the son of Ahitub the priest, and all of his father's household, the priests who were in Nob, and they all came to the king. And Saul said, Listen now, O son of Ahitub. And he said, Here I am, my lord. And Saul said to him, Why have you rebelled against me, you and the son of Jesse, by your giving him food and a sword, and by inquiring of God on his behalf, to rise up against me as one who lies in wait as of this day? And Ahimelech answered the king and said, Now who among all your servants is as faithful as David, who is the king's son-in-law, and who goes to do your service and is honored in your house? Have I begun today to inquire of God on his behalf? Far be it from me. Let not the king impute anything to his servant, nor to all my father's household, for your servant knew nothing of all this, less or more. And the king said, You shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's household. And the king said to the footmen who were standing beside him, Turn and put all the priests of the Lord to death, for their hand is also with David, and because they knew that he was fleeing, and they did not inform me. And the king's servants would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. And the king said to Doeg, You turn, and fall upon the priests. And Doeg turned, and he fell upon the priests, and slew on that day 85 men, wearers of the linen ephod. And Nob, the city of the priests, he smote with the sharp edge of the sword, both man and woman, infant and suckling, and ox and ass, and lamb with the sharp edge of the sword. And one son of Ahimelech the son of Ahitub, whose name was Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had slain the priests of the Lord. And David said to Abiathar, I knew on that day that Doeg the Edomite was there, and that he would tell Saul, I brought about the death of every person of your father's household. Stay with me. Fear not, for he who seeks my soul seeks your soul, for you shall be in safeguard with me. End of chapter 22. So here we continue. David has fled away from Saul, knowing that Saul means to do him harm, and so now we see how he does so. First off, he escapes to the cave of Adullam, and there his brothers and all his father's household find out about the matter, and they go and meet up with him. Not just him, or not just his family, but also people who are in distress. So it says, everyone in distress who had a creditor and every man of embittered spirit. So basically, anybody who really needed a new opportunity in life, right? So those who are in distress, so like you could think of someone who was homeless or just was in a bad situation. Men who had a creditor, so they owed debts, right? And they were on the run. And also men of an embittered spirit. So these are guys who are just really frustrated with how things are going, or they've got an attitude. They all gather around David, and they become his personal army, basically, 400 strong. And David goes on to Moab, right? And this is actually huge. He asks the king of Moab, "Let my mother and father come out now with you until I know what God will do for me." And so Moab, the king of Moab, actually takes David's mother and father, and if I'm reading this correctly, he gives his parents to this guy. This is very, very, wow. The king of Moab is taking David's family, his parents, his mother and father, and actually taking them in, while David is figuring out what's going to happen for himself. Now, this is very smart. This is smart because Moab, of course, recognizes, okay, well, this David guy is pretty serious, and we don't want to deal with him because we know what he can do. We know the stories, right? So the king of Moab actually does this, and David stays in the stronghold. Now, what happens is there's Gad, who's a prophet, and he warns David, and he says, don't stay in the stronghold, go and enter Judah. And so he leaves the stronghold. Basically, the prophet warned him that they were going to be in trouble. So he said, you got to go. So he goes to Hereth in Judah. And so Saul hears about this, and he hears about this whole thing going on, and he's sitting there in Gibeah under the tree on a hill with his spear in hand, and he tells them, people of Benjamin, let me ask you this. Will David, the son of Jesse, will David give you fields and vineyards? Will he appoint you as captains? All of you have basically betrayed me because not one of you can tell me when my son made a covenant with this guy. And none of you have sympathy for my situation or tells me that my son has betrayed me. None of you have told me the truth, or none of you have spoken up. So you've all failed me. And then Doeg the Edomite, who it says was appointed over Saul's servants. So this is an Edomite. He is not an Israelite. He's of Edom, right? He is the one who then basically reveals about Ahimelech giving David provisions. And so he tells him about the bread and the sword from last episode. And from here, the king basically says, all right, well, bring that guy to me. I need to talk to him. And he finds out, Ahimelech, my guy, what are you doing helping this guy conspiring against me? You're helping him? Well, what do you think you're doing? Betraying me. And Ahimelech is like, betraying you? I had no idea that he was betraying you or rebelling against you. I'm innocent. I don't know anything about this. Right? You're the king, and David is your most faithful servant. He's your son-in-law, and he goes out and does everything that you tell him to do. How was I supposed to know this man who you honor was not working for you anymore? I had no idea. Have I begun to inquire of God on his behalf? No, I do it on your behalf still. Like he's pleading innocent because he has no idea what David has done. And the king tells him that he's putting you to death. All right, you and all your father's household are done for. So he tells his soldiers to put all the priests of the Lord to death, but they won't do it. They cannot bring themselves to kill the priests. But Doeg, the Edomite, he gets told to do it, and he does it. He kills 85, but one of them gets away. And it says, wearers of the linen ephod. So, these guys are wearing holy garments, but one of them gets away. One who gets away, the son of Ahimelech, Ahitub. The son of Ahitub, the son of Ahimelech. So Ahitub is his grandfather, Ahimelech's his father. His name is Abiathar. He escapes and gets to David, and he tells David what has happened. And David says, this is all my fault. I knew that the Edomite was there, and I knew he was going to tell Saul, and because of me, all those priests have died. It's my fault. So you stay with me. I will keep you safe because the people who hunt for you are hunting for me. So I will protect you. And that is the end of this chapter. It's a very... honestly, this is horrible. I mean, the priests of the Lord, these are holy men devoted to God, and they were slain by an Edomite? They allowed this to happen? God allowed this to happen? There's a lot to question here. There really is. There is a lot to take in here that is... It's hard to reconcile. Why was this allowed to happen? Well, one, the king does have authority to declare what he declares, so that's one part of it, but the people of Israel refused to turn on the priest. The Edomite was able to turn on the priest. He has that ability, I suppose. He has that freedom. But it is shocking that it was allowed to occur, that these priests were allowed to be cut down. I don't have an answer for this. Maybe it was because they were going to be corrupted. Maybe it's because they were corrupt in serving Saul as their king. I don't have a good reason why they were destroyed, other than the king said so, but one of them was spared, and we could say this is the miracle from heaven, that Abiathar not only escapes, but actually makes it to David. I also think it's huge, I mentioned this before, that the king of Moab is taking in David's parents. That's really like, wow, that's crazy. So now we move on to chapter 23, verse 1, book of Samuel 1. And they told David, saying, Behold, the Philistines are waging war against Keilah, and they are pillaging the threshing floors. And David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go and smite these Philistines? And the Lord said to David, Go, and you shall smite the Philistines, and save Keilah. And David's men said to him, Behold, we are afraid here in Judah. How much more if we go to Keilah, to the battle array of the Philistines? And David continued further to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord answered him and said, Arise, and go down to Keilah, for I am giving the Philistines into your hand. And David and his men went to Keilah and battled the Philistines, and he led away their cattle and struck them a great blow, and David saved the inhabitants of Keilah. And it was that when Abiathar the son of Ahimelech fled to David, to Keilah, the ephod came down in his hand. And it was related to Saul that David had come to Keilah. And Saul said, God has delivered him into my hands, for he has been shut in by coming into a city with doors and bars. And Saul summoned all the people to war to go down to Keilah to besiege David and his men. And David knew that upon him Saul was plotting the evil, and he said to Abiathar the priest, Bring near the ephod. And David said, O Lord God of Israel, your bondsman has heard that Saul seeks to come to Keilah to destroy the city because of me. Will the citizens of Keilah deliver me into his hand? Will Saul come down, as your bondsman has heard? O Lord God of Israel, tell now your bondsman. And the Lord said, He will come down. And David said, Will the citizens of Keilah deliver me and my men into Saul's hands? And the Lord said, They will deliver. And David and his men, about 600 men, arose and left Keilah, and they went wherever they would go. And it was told to Saul that David had escaped from Keilah, and he refrained from going forth. And David dwelt in the desert in the strongholds, and he dwelt in the mountain in the desert of Ziph. And Saul sought him all the days, but God did not deliver him into his hand. And David saw that Saul had gone forth to seek his soul, and David was in the desert of Ziph in the forest. And Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David to the forest, and he strengthened his hand through God. And he said to him, Fear not, for the hand of my father Saul will not find you, and you shall reign over Israel. And may I be to you as a viceroy. And my father Saul, too, knows that this is so. And the two of them made a covenant before the Lord. And David in the forest remained, and Jonathan went to his home. And the Ziphites went up to Saul to Gibeah, saying, Is David not hiding with us in the strongholds in the forest in the hill of Hachilah, which is from the south of the desolate wasteland? And now, according to all the desires of your heart to come down, and it is incumbent upon us to deliver him into the king's hand. And Saul said, Blessed shall you be to the Lord, for you have taken pity upon me. Go now, prepare yet, and know and see his place where his foot will be. Who saw him there? For one told me that he deals cunningly. And see and know of all the hiding places where he hides, and you shall return to me with the certainty, and I shall go with you. And it shall be that if he is in the land, I shall search him out among the thousands of Judah. And they arose and went to Ziph before Saul. And David and his men were in the desert of Maon, in the plain which is to the south of the desolate wasteland. And Saul and his men went to search, and they told David, and he went down to the rock and stayed in the desert of Maon, and Saul heard and pursued David in the desert of Maon. And Saul went from this side of the mountain, and David and his men were on that side of the mountain. And David was hastening to get away from before Saul, but Saul and his men were encircling to David and his men to seize them. And a messenger came to Saul, saying, "Make haste, and go, for the Philistines have spread out over the land." And Saul returned from pursuing David, and he went toward the Philistines. Therefore they called that place the Rock of the Divisions. End of chapter 23. So now we continue with our explanation. David, he is getting a report that the Philistines are now sieging a place called Keilah. And David asks God, do I go and do I help these people? Will I smite the Philistines? And God tells him, yes, go and take Keilah. And his men are scared, and they're like, David, we're afraid, man. Those Philistines are tough. We're already here outnumbered dealing with Saul. How much more can we handle? And he asks God again, and God answers him and tells him, I'm giving them into your hand, meaning you're going to win. So David and his men go, they defeat the Philistines, lead away their cattle, and strike them a great blow, and he saves Keilah. And so at this point now, it says, when Abiathar the son of Ahimelech fled to David to Keilah, the ephod came down into his hand. So essentially, and in doing this, remember, the priest's son is the sole survivor of the massacre. He gets to David. He has joined in. And it says that when he gets to Keilah, he gets the ephod. So he is now anointed as a priest, essentially. By getting the ephod, he's now got the ability to do his job. So he is able to provide information as a priest. And as this news comes in, Saul, on the other hand, finds out that David's in Keilah, and he's thinking, oh, good, God has given him to me because he's trapped in a city now. And so he summons his whole army. We're going to go down, and we're going to go besiege this city and take David. And now David, he catches wind of this. He knows that Saul is scheming, so he asks the priest, bring near the ephod. And he asks him, we start doing some prophecy. We start asking. And he says, O Lord God of Israel, I hear Saul is coming from me. So will the citizens of this town give me to the king? Will the king come down, as I'm hearing, and tell me? And God tells him, yes, he will come down to you. He will come down to this city. And will they give him over to me? Or rather, will this people of the city turn me over to him? And God says, yes, they will. And so from here, their army is now 600 strong, which means David gained another 200 after the things in Keilah. And I think that's significant. It shows that people have taken up cause with him. He started with 400. Now he's at 600. So him and his army leave. And as they get away, Saul finds out David got away. And so now, okay, well, since he got away, never mind. Scratch that. We're going to stay where we are. So David he's in the desert, hiding out in the strongholds in the desert, and he's in the mountain in the desert of Ziph, and Saul is constantly searching for him, but he never catches him because God is protecting David. And so it says, he was here, he was there. Eventually, Jonathan, he goes away, and he meets with David in the forest in the desert of Ziph, and he tells him, don't be afraid. My father will not get you. You will be king over Israel, and may I be a viceroy. So in other words, Jonathan is once again trying to secure his own place and glorify and bless David as the future king, saying, you will be king, and may I be your servant as one of your top guys. And my father, he knows this is the situation. He knows what's going on. So once again, the two of them make yet another covenant, and it seems to be that this is securing his position even further so. Now, going on, the Ziphites tell Saul in Gibeah, they say, hey, David is hiding with us. He's in our land, and we know where he is, and so why don't we, since it's our job to tell you, we're telling you. And Saul says, good, thank you for telling me, very good, but I want you to go back and make sure you identify exactly where he is, because he's very cunning. I want you to find all his hiding places and tell me for sure where he's going to be. And so that's what the plan is. And from here, Saul and David now once again begin their whole cat and mouse game. As they're searching for David, David finds out, and he goes into the desert of Maon, and David is pursued there by Saul. And so while David is running away, they get to this mountain, right? They're on this mountain, and Saul is on the other side of the mountain. And so basically he's trying to catch David, but it's like when two kids are playing and like they're playing tag and one of them is on one side of the table, the other one's on the other side of the table. And like when you go left, he goes right. When he goes right, you go left. And so you can't catch each other. This is kind of what's happening here. So they stay on the opposite sides of the mountain of one another. And David eludes Saul. And then suddenly a messenger comes in and says, Saul, we got trouble. Philistines are everywhere. So he, unfortunately for him, right, he's trying to catch David. He can't catch David. Time to go back and go catch some Philistines. He got away again. Shucks. So this spares David another encounter, and the place is then called thenceforth the Rock of the Divisions. All right, now we move on to the final chapter for today, chapter 24 of the book of Samuel 1, verse 1. And David went up from there, and he stayed in the strongholds of En-Gedi. And it was when Saul had returned from following the Philistines that they told him, saying, David is in the desert of En-Gedi. And Saul took 3,000 picked men from all Israel, and went to seek David and his men on the rocks of the wild goats. And he came to the sheepcotes on the way, and there was a cave. And Saul went in to cover his feet, while David and his men were staying at the end of the cave. And David's men said to him, Behold, the day concerning which the Lord said to you, Behold, I shall deliver your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it will seem good in your eyes. And David arose and secretly severed the skirt of Saul's coat. And it was afterwards that David's heart smote him, for he had severed Saul's skirt. And he said to his men, The Lord forbid it from me, that I should do this thing to my Lord, to the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth my hand upon him, for he is the Lord's anointed. And David stayed his men with these words, and did not allow them to rise up against Saul. And Saul arose from the cave and went on the way. And David arose afterwards, and emerged from the cave after Saul, saying, My lord the king! And Saul looked behind him, and David bowed with his face to the ground and prostrated himself. And David said to Saul, Why should you listen to the words of a man saying, Behold, David seeks your harm? Behold, this day your eyes have seen how the Lord delivered you today into my hands in the cave. And one said to kill you, but my soul had pity on you. And I said, I shall not stretch forth my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. And Father, also see the skirt of your coat in my hand. For in that I severed the skirt of your coat, and I did not kill you, know and see that there is neither evil nor transgression in my hand, and I have not sinned against you. But you are stalking my soul to take it. May the Lord judge between me and you, and may the Lord avenge me of you, but my hand shall not be upon you. As says the proverb of the Ancient One, From the wicked comes forth wickedness, and my hand shall not be upon you. After whom has the king of Israel come forth? Whom are you pursuing? A dead dog? A single flea? And the Lord shall become a judge, and he shall judge between me and you. And he shall see and plead my cause, and exact justice for me from your hand. And it was when David finished speaking these words to Saul, that Saul said, Is this your voice, my son David? And Saul raised his voice and wept. And he said to David, You are more righteous than I, for you have repaid me with goodness, while I have repaid you with evil. And you have shown today how you have dealt well with me, how the Lord delivered me into your hand, and you did not kill me. For when a man finds his enemy, does he send him away safely? And may the Lord repay you with goodness for what you have done to me on this day. And now behold, I know that you will reign, and the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hand. And now, swear to me by the Lord, that you will not cut off my seed, and you will not destroy my name from my father's house. And David swore to Saul, and Saul went to his home, and David and his men went up to the stronghold. End of chapter 24. The big confrontation, the big moment of truth. So here, once again, time for a recap. David is hiding out in the strongholds of En-Gedi, and Saul finds out that David is there. From the Philistines, actually. The Philistines actually tell, when he returns from following the Philistines, they tell him David is in the desert of En-Gedi. So probably not the Philistines told him, but his men of the kingdom tell him. So he takes 3,000 soldiers, and they seek David at the rocks of the wild goats. And at the sheepcotes on the way, all right, so they're stopping by, there's this cave. So Saul goes in to cover his feet, it says, while David and his men were staying at the end of the cave. Now, I'm not sure exactly what it means to cover his feet. Was he resting a little bit? Was he perhaps dipping his feet in the water? I don't know. It says he went to cover his feet. So he might have been resting. It was some manner of a little bit of a break. Nevertheless, he's in there by himself. He's undefended. And David's men realize, David, the king is here. Behold the day concerning which the Lord said to you, behold, I shall deliver your enemy into your hands, and you shall do to him as it will seem good in your eyes. And so David, taking this message, he goes and he cuts off a piece of Saul's skirt. And then it says afterwards, David's heart smote him, for he had severed Saul's skirt. And he tells his men, Lord, forbid it from me that I should do this thing to my Lord, to the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth my hand upon him, for he is the Lord's anointed. So basically, God said, I'll deliver him to your hands. What? To do as you see is good in your eyes. So David, he simply takes proof that he had the jump on Saul, but he does not kill him because he knows to kill him would be an unforgivable sin. And so he can't betray his father, the king. He's his father-in-law, after all. He does love the king. He just had to run for his life. So by telling them this, the men back down. And then Saul leaves the cave, and David chases after him and calls out to him and says, my lord the king. And he gives his long speech saying, why should you trust anybody saying that I want to hurt you? Look at this. I had the chance to kill you today, and I didn't. I didn't because you are the king. You are anointed by God. I can't do that. I could never hurt you. And look in my hand. I have proof. I cut off a piece of your clothing to prove how close I was to killing you, and I didn't kill you. Is this not evidence? So let God be the judge. Let God be the one to prove to us who's going to be judged here. I'm not your enemy. And let the Lord avenge me of you, but I am not going to hurt you. From the wicked comes forth wickedness. My hand shall not be upon you. So in other words, David is rising. And he also goes further. He lowers himself. After whom has the king of Israel come forth? Who are you pursuing? A dead dog? A single flea? He basically says, I'm nothing. Why are you chasing me? I'm nothing. But God will be a judge. He's going to judge between us. He'll plead my cause, and he will exact justice from me. Saul, it's like he broke a curse. Saul says, is this your voice, my son David? So he brings him back to being of sound mind. And he tells him, you are more righteous than I. You have repaid me with goodness while I've repaid you with evil. You've shown today how you have dealt with me, how you have dealt well with me, how you didn't kill me when you had every chance to. Because if I was your enemy, you wouldn't be sending me away. May God repay you for the goodness you have done me. And he says, behold, I know that you will reign. So here Saul actually just straight up says, I know you will be the king. I understand now. I accept you will be the king. So make a vow, swear to me you will not cut off my seed and you will not destroy my name from my father's house. In other words, don't erase me. Don't destroy my family. But please swear to do good by me. Please. Because once he's king, he'll have the authority to do it. So he makes him swear a covenant, basically. So they swear. He swears to Saul, and they each part ways. Saul goes home, and David goes back to the stronghold. So this is huge. Big turnaround. David, it seems, is finally free of his pursuer, and the great chase is over. What's next for the king and David and all the others? Well, we'll have to find out next time, because that's the end of this week's episode of the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2. Thank you so much for listening. You know, the thing that really gets me most about this, it's the death of the priests. That is the hardest part. That Saul cut down the priests is just so terrible, because they were priests of the Lord. So you really hate to hear about that. I don't have much on the way of it, other than the king has the authority to give such an order, and the Edomite is wicked enough to do it. Nevertheless, it's incredible what an act of mercy. David, his righteousness, both accepting the fault and then also going so far as to say he recognized God said, I can do with you what I want. He could have killed Saul, but instead he showed him kindness. He did what he saw was good in his eyes. This is David's righteousness. This is something that proves his righteousness, and it's quite something. Until next time, this has been Shmuel Moshe with the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2. Once again, saying thanks for listening. Tune in next time, and as always, until then, Baruch Hashem.